YouTubers and NFL fans everywhere. This is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, giving you my 2024-2025 NFL Divisional Round Weekend predictions. Well, for the Fanatic this week, as the postseason began, I had an inverse week, unfortunately. But, so against the spread, I had a rough stretch there. 2-4 against the spread. Obviously, probably the worst pick that I had was the Chargers and Texans. Taking the Chargers as a 3-point favorite in that game ended up being an abject disaster following the second half. I would say that. Like watching the first half, or pretty much watching about through the second, through the first two quarters, objectively, it was a 6-0 game. The Texans offense felt like it couldn't do anything right. It just looked inept. It looked sad. And honestly, I thought the Chargers were going to be able to basically end the game after you had the botched snap, and C.J. Stroud ended up converting a 3rd and 20 plus to Xavier Hutchinson, who that was his only big play of the entire game. And to me, that was the significant moment there of difference in that game, that started all the momentum. Because they ended up scoring the touchdown after that, and then obviously Justin Herbert, one of the supposed 5 to 10 best quarterbacks in the league, had his worst professional game of his career. And I hope for people out there that the Herbert fever broke. Okay? Justin isn't that, Justin's not a top 10 quarterback. He's more in the Dak, the Baker. He's more in that range of the Dak, the Bakers. Like if you want to put Sam Darnold in that group this year. Like he's in that group. He's not a Joe. He's not a Josh. He's not a Lamar. He's not Stroud. He's not even Jaden Daniels, who I would take today over Justin Herbert after what I've seen. Okay? But you just don't see that in him. And again, the Chargers, look, kudos to the Texans. Texans defense balled out. Sensational game. Derek Stingley, phenomenal game with 2 picks. The pressure was immense. And essentially, because the offenses were about the same. Joe Mixon was the difference. He did rush for 106 yards. That was a key factor there. But basically everything else, Ladd McConkey had 198 yards with 240 that Herbert threw. Everybody else, no other Charger receiver, I believe, had more than 16 yards receiving. Okay, and again, to be fair to him, 3 of those picks were on Herbert. 1 of them was on Disley, who dropped the ball. But, for the Texans and Chiefs, that one, hey, next time, if I ever have to look at the confidence to pick the Chargers in a playoff game with Justin Herbert in a big spot, I'll just look at Cameron Dicker batting the ball down and just remind me that the Chargers, though they have improved and though they have the confidence, they're still the Chargers at the end of the day. And I'm going to say Chargers because I think Jim Harbaugh has earned that respect. I will not call them the previous name that I called them several times that people could make. But, there was that one. Baltimore-Pittsburgh. That spread pick, that was just bad. Even though, again, like I thought in a little bit, Russell Wilson, after the couple touchdowns to Pickens, or the one to Williams, I thought, okay, maybe they could keep it within the 9 points. But then, of course, Derrick Henry runs with a 43-yard touchdown, and that was all but the shouting. But, for the Ravens, look, that is the game plan as a Raven fan that I would like to see copied this week, next week, and in New Orleans, if we make it there, at Super Bowl 59, because that is exactly how we should play. Run the ball as often as we can with Lamar and Henry. We ran it 50 times, we only threw it 21. That is a winning formula. Derrick Henry is a monster of a person. He had the 3rd fastest speed running out of the gate. It was the easiest thing to predict, and it's the simplest formula. In fact, if we give Derrick over 25 plus carries, we have won, I believe, every week of the year. It is a simple, easy formula. And I have all the confidence in the world that I hope that the next 2 weeks against the 2, arguably best teams, even though Houston could do it, and we'll give Houston a tiny puncher's chance because of their defense, that, Baltimore has this formula. When you look at a Ravens-Steeler game, to watch that game and understand, hey, there was a drive where the Ravens just ran it 15 straight times, 95 yards down the field. That is a level of physical dominance. And, for, men and just in competitive, I'll also include women or whatever, men, women, they, whatever when you are in a competitive battle, gender or not, that is taking the will out of someone and asserting a level of dominance that is demoralizing and deflating. Okay? Because Pittsburgh, they did not lead any of these 6 games on this 6-game losing streak. Okay? And the entire team, the offense, the defense, through that first half was absolutely lifeless. Okay? The only thing I would say is that 2 things I would bring up. The Pittsburgh Steelers have said they are not going to move on from Mike Tomlin. I think they need to consider it. Because the Pittsburgh Steelers now have gone 8 straight years without making a conference championship game. The gap before that was only a 4-year gap before the Steelers made a conference championship game. Mike Tomlin, since 2017, has become Marvin Lewis. And Marvin Lewis should have been fired years ago. In that 5-year stretch, when the Bengals made the playoffs every year. And I know Steelers fans are going to make the argument. And you can say Andy Dalton every one of those years was better than what you had with Ben Roethlisberger in 20 and 21, Kenny Pickett in 22, Kenny Pickett and Rudolph in 23, and Russell Wilson and Justin Fields this year. Okay? But there is just a consistent pattern of this team not having a quality enough offensive line, having competent enough quarterback play that, can overcome the limited offensive, around it. They only have really one legitimate wide receiver in George Pickens, who a lot of Steeler fans and other fans in general probably would not want to make a commitment to long term. Pat Freiermuth is probably their best consistent weapon. The defense is just getting older, and it just feels like through that entire game, they have tuned Mike Tomlin out. And I think the Steelers, they need to make a change. Mike Tomlin can get a job with the Bears. Mike Tomlin can get a job with the Jets. Mike Tomlin can go to New Orleans. Mike Tomlin can go to any professional or collegiate job that opened up, once he got hired. And I think Mike Tomlin, can win. He can instantly win with a program. I don't know if he can win a Super Bowl because of his defensive mindset, but I do think the Steelers will need to make a change. They will not, from reports, but that was my quick thought on that. And then if you look at what happened with Russell Wilson, this is all I'm going to say. Okay, and people that have known me, I have been a big Russell Wilson fan. Okay, and the point that I don't understand from a lot of, critics, and I'll mention it again, that Russell Wilson, objectively, okay, and anybody that wants to challenge me can, in the comments, I'm just going to say it. He was the second best losing quarterback in the wild card weekend. No, don't tell me Justin Herbert played a better game than Russell Wilson. He did not. Don't tell me that Bo Nix, the guy that replaced him, played the same exact game. Unless you want to rave about a great one throw he had to Troy Frank. What did Bo Nix do the rest of the game? Jack. Bo did jack, and he was worse than Russell Wilson the rest of the way through. End of story. Or what about Jordan Love, the new Pac-Man? What about Pac-Man, the new Pac-Man that made $55 million? He couldn't even get in the end zone. It took a big 31-yard Jacobs run where he went through 4 tackles, or the Packers wouldn't have anything offensively. He threw 3 interceptions, all of them horrific. The second one was the worst. Throwing it right to Zach Baum for no reason. And then Sam Darnold last night. Sam Darnold, speaking of Pac-Man, he looked like one of the ghosts out there. Sam Darnold was looking at the Pac-Man ghosts like Blinky and Clyde and Winky. It was that bad. I'm not saying Russell Wilson played phenomenally or played, good or even good. But looking at the playoff quarterback field for the losing side, the only person I would give you that played better was Baker Mayfield. And even Baker had his moments, and, Baker essentially cost him the game with the fumble there, even though I would question the play calling in that regard. But that's the only thing I wanted to say about Russ is that, people, are going to look at Russ and go like, oh, well, he doesn't have a future in Pittsburgh. And when I signed in Pittsburgh, no. But don't tell me that Russell Wilson is just this below sucky bot that's trash. I watched a lot of quarterback play throughout the year, before, during the regular season while he was gone, while he was there, and in the postseason over the weekend. Russell Wilson was better than a lot of what I saw holistically, given everything that you wanted to say. So, again, do I think Russell Wilson, is going to win a Super Bowl or can lead a team by his own ability to win a Super Bowl? No, he can't. And if I was Pittsburgh, I wouldn't re-sign him. But just to think that, Russell Wilson couldn't play, or Russell Wilson can't get another job. You're that moronic, too, if you don't think Russell Wilson can get another job. Russell Wilson can get any team, a starting or backup position. I would argue he's a starter in 7 or 8 different places and a backup everywhere else. He would be the best backup quarterback in the league, full stop. So, there are my thoughts on that. And then Sunday, obviously, Denver, Buffalo. Like I said, Buffalo asserted their dominance. 276 yards passing from Allen, 2 touchdowns, including that one incredible one to, I believe, Shakur in the back of the end zone. James Cook had over 100 yards. The defense, after giving up that first drive, even though I did feel bad for Bo in the regard that Bo in the regard, no pun intended there, Bo regard, that they should have had 10 points, and maybe that could have changed things. It felt like the Texans-Ravens game last year when the Texans missed a field goal where they could have made it close, and then it basically snowballed from there. It obviously felt like after Lutz missed that field goal, it all snowballed for the Broncos there. But Denver had no shot. Packers, Eagles, Jordan Love, he lost his lineman and all that, horrible stuff. He didn't have Christian Watson. He didn't have his center. Jaden Reed left the game. So he was playing with cheese curds, if you will, the rest of the way through, but he just can't have those turnovers, especially with how well the Packers defense played, because Jalen Hurts had about 40 yards passing through about 2.5 quarters. And again, he played well, and to be fair, the one drive, for about a portion of the game, Jalen only had that one touchdown off the first play of the game, former Packer Oren Burks knocking the ball out of the All-Pro kick returner Keyshawn Nixon's hands, and that basically snowballed from there. And look, the Eagles defense played sensationally, though the injury to Darius Slay is something to keep an eye on, but also losing Nakobe Dean for the year with a torn patella tendon, very significant injury. I think that is a injury that people should talk about, moving forward. But I think the Eagles, did a good job in that one. Commanders, Bucks, best game of the weekend for the wild card weekend by far. Most competitive. I thought Tampa and Washington played very well. Jaden Daniels is the real deal. Jaden, to me, is already emerged as the second or third greatest quarterback in the Commanders franchise history. Only Joe Theismann, and I believe Sammy Ball or Sonny Jurgensen. If you're looking at the whole history of the Commanders, he's probably already emerged himself as the third best quarterback in franchise history. People that don't care, or most people that weren't alive in the 40s or 50s, knowing those names, would probably put Jaden Daniels second, but he's already, I think, has already placed himself as, if he can, stay healthy, stay consistent, and with that roster, as the second best quarterback in that franchise's history, because he was that crisp, that sharp, that consistent. They got lucky with a doink, but hey, that's the break stuff. But, that game was great. And then Minnesota and the Rams, Stafford and them, clinic of a game. Stafford started like 7 for 7, 10 for 10, moving the ball up and down the field. The Rams defense, playoff career high, tying 9 sacks, just absolutely humiliated and emasculated the Vikings offensive line. Darnold did have a terrible interception to Kobe Durant. And, that KD, making a big KD play like, the one that also played in Arizona, that plays in Arizona currently. But that's a different conversation for a different day. But, the Rams handled their business. But, so those are my quick, rundown of what happened over Wildcard Weekend. But let me get into my divisional round picks. So, against the spread and straight up, like I said before, I had an inverse week, 2-4 against the spread. Unfortunately, straight up, though, I went 4-2. So, for the overall postseason record, I have a 33% against the spread percentage and a 66.7% percentage straight up. Overall for the year, through 278 games, I'm now 144, 128, and 6. That equals 52.9 or 53%. And straight up now, I'm 198 and 80, which equals 71.2. So I still had a very fantastic year, regardless of what the next 7 games occur. I'm not going to go under 500 or, probably drop out of the 70s. but it would be nice to go on a nice 7 run to finish. And of course, the big one is right behind me in the center, Chiefs and Lions. I had that prediction for my Week 1 video, and I hope I can maintain that the rest of the way through. But let me get into my predictions. So on Saturday, the 4:30 slot again for Houston, when the 4-seeded Houston Texans travel to Kansas City to take on the number 1-seeded Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs are 8-point favorites in this game. Give me Kansas City here -8 and Kansas City straight up. The next game, when the 6-seeded Washington Commanders travel to Detroit to take on the 1-seeded Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions are 9.5-point favorites in this game. Give me Detroit here straight up, but I'm going to take Washington. This might be the only last time I take an underdog the entire year on the spread. I'm going to take Washington here +9.5 and Washington and Detroit straight up. And on Sunday, when the number 4-seeded Los Angeles Rams travel to Philadelphia to take on the number 2-seeded Philadelphia Eagles. The Philadelphia Eagles are 6-point favorites in this game. Give me Philadelphia here -6 and Philadelphia straight up. And lastly, in the game of the weekend, 6:30. Thank goodness Martin Luther King Day for everybody out there that can be off. I know a lot of people, Martin Luther King Day, Inauguration Day, what a great thing to be off, for everybody out there that has that day off so they can watch this game in both Baltimore and Buffalo and maybe just across the country because this is, the biggest game of the weekend. When the number 3-seeded Baltimore Ravens travel to Buffalo to take on the number 2-seeded Buffalo Bills. The Baltimore Ravens are 1-point favorites in this game. I'm going to take Baltimore here -1 and Baltimore straight up. All right, it's time for my quick thoughts on each game. The Kansas City Chiefs over the Houston Texans. This one to me, when you look at these two teams, Kansas City has pretty much played consistent, solid football. They played this team not even 3 weeks ago on Christmas. It was a competitive game. Stroudman, had a couple nice, stretches. They had a couple big turnovers. Of course, everybody remembers that game as the unfortunate game where Tank Dell tore his entire knee and his ankle up, and he is not going to play. Stephon Diggs is already out, and the Texans really could not run the ball that effectively. I still think with how that Chiefs defensive line is, especially coming off 20-plus days rest, I think the Chiefs can essentially stymie the rest of the Texans' offense. The Texans on the road have not nearly been as good or as efficient as they've been at home, and it's just the factor of with Kansas City that it's hard to feel that Houston has any chance to win. I think Houston, look, they're getting to a spot to where people are going to feel good that again they've won playoff games in back-to-back years. First time I think since 2011, 2012 when that happened. To get to the divisional round, but the Texans all time in franchise history have made the divisional round 5 times. They have lost every time. Twice to the Ravens, and I think the other two were the Patriots. Or it was the Ravens twice, the Patriots and the Chiefs are the 5 games in the divisional round. They have not won any of them, and they've been basically thoroughly consistent. And losing in decisive games. I remember the Texan one. That was when the Texans were up 21-0, and then the Chiefs erased that 20-plus point deficit in less than a half to make it a competitive game where the Chiefs had the lead. One of the all-time sad collapses in Houston history. But when you look at this game between both these teams, the Chiefs' defense is better. I don't think Joe Mixon is going to be able to run the ball that effectively. Butker should be healthy and confident. Fairbairn, has been solid, but there have been moments where he's missed some extra points, missed some big kicks. And I think for the Texans, they know that they have the least amount of pressure out of every team. Well, the Texans and the Commanders, I would say. The Texans have a little bit more pressure. But the Texans really have nothing to play for. I just think the problem for the Texans will be if this happens for a 3rd straight year, then we're going to start looking at stagnation to where D'Amico's not getting fired, but now we're going to start getting to the point where Texan fans are going to say, can we get to the 3rd step? It's a 4-step process to get to the Super Bowl. Texans are always been good to get to the 2nd stop and lose pretty convincingly every time. I think this continues to happen. I just think, look, Patrick's playing phenomenal. Patrick's never lost a divisional round game. He's actually, to be fair, I think he's never even had to, I guess outside of Buffalo, but no, outside of the 1 year, he's never had a home divisional game outside of that. He's only had the 1 year last year where he was not the 1 or 2 seed, and then he had to go on the road twice. He won both of them. I don't even think I think the Texans have one home win all time, or one road win against the Chiefs all time in the Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid era. I believe that's it. But I think the Chiefs, well rested, better running game. Patrick's playing out of his mind. The longest active streak without throwing interception in the NFL currently. I think the Chiefs, with the weather, the confidence, talent, I think the Chiefs get a nice, decisive win over the Texans to put them in their 7th consecutive AFC Championship game, truly making them feel like the New England dynasty after Brady and them left. I definitely feel like Mahomes and them, with this win, will continue to show that level of dominance while they get to wait, the winner of the Bills and the Ravens. So, that's why Kansas City are -8 and Kansas City straight up. The next game, the Detroit Lions over the Washington Commanders. This one, to me, it comes down to the Washington Commanders defense is really not that good. And I don't think Detroit's, to be fair, I think Detroit, they still have a significant amount of injuries, which I'm concerned about. But I feel that in that regard, I think that the Lions, I know, can score points on a very suspect Commander defense. And I'm not saying, look, and the reason why I'm taking Washington with the 9.5 is that the Lions defense is still ravaged by injury. Even though Terry Arnold may come back, and David Montgomery is going to be in play as well. And, that'll help the Lions offense. But even if the Commanders can score, especially with Jayden Daniels being a mobile quarterback, and we've seen the Lions defense over the last, several games against more mobile quarterbacks have a bit of a struggle when keeping up. If you're telling me which offense and team do I trust more in a shootout between Kingsbury and the Commanders and Ben Johnson and the Lions, I think the Lions offense can easily outshoot the Commanders defense, and I just feel like the Lions can fundamentally, consistently roll their way into their 2nd consecutive conference championship game, which will be the first time in franchise history, but their first ever home NFC championship game in franchise history, which will be the biggest game in Detroit history, which is saying something. But, that's kind of putting the cart a little before the horse. I think the Lions, with their offensive line, with the healthiness of their offense, I think they can fundamentally control the clock and grind out a win against the Commanders' defense that has shown moments and has been very big. But also, to be fair, they've been on a 6-game winning streak, but over the last 4 or 5 weeks, they've had to win on basically the last play of the game at the gun, and I just think that is that just feels unsustainable in regard to how this team move forward. So, should be a great game. I'm going to take the Commanders with the 9.5 because I trust the Washington offense going up against Campbell's depleted defense to be able to keep it close, but I think this game will be a very good and consistent shootout, and in that one, I take the better offense as Detroit's over Washington. So, that's like Washington plus 9.5, Detroit straight up. The next game, the Philadelphia Eagles over the Los Angeles Rams. This one to me comes down to, I think the Eagles defense should be able to hold up very well. I think that the Vikings showed in the second half, after they were up 24-3, the Rams kind of put their foot off the gas a bit, and they only scored 3 points the rest of the way through. I just think the Eagles, they have a better offensive line. They're gonna hold up against the Rams pass rush. I think A.J. Brown and Devontae and Goddard should be able to do very well against that primarily man defense. And it's just up to Jalen to be able to use his feet and his arm on consistent measures to win this game. Could the Rams win? Absolutely. I think the Rams have a very young defense, have a more consistent and proven coach than Sirianni. I think that, Stafford's a proven veteran. Like, they have all the formula, the expectation, the roster, even though Kyron and Puka's injuries are significant. And they are, and to be fair, if one of them misses, they're not winning this game. Because in a 20-game stretch, Kyron, Puka, Cooper, and Stafford have all put together 20 games. They're 15-5 in those games. But also, I just feel like, again, you're saying to Los Angeles, who was out in Arizona, and very quickly, I do want to say my thoughts are with everybody out there in Los Angeles, and my prayers are out there for all the horrific wildfire damage, the 24 lives that have been lost through this horrific tragedy. I want to thank everybody out in Los Angeles, the LA Fire Department, all the first responders, all the people helping in shelters by, keeping these people protected and safe from these, horrific damaging fires throughout LA and Paladis County and all that area. So, but I think, at the end of the day, even though, the Rams do have that extra motivation of the motivation of, doing it something bigger. In Philadelphia, it's a cold environment to be in. And I just feel, again, the Eagles, they can run the ball well. They know how to put, and I just think the Eagles' offensive line, if they are going to play man coverage with A.J. Brown and Devontae, Jalen should be able to hit a lot of slants, good go balls, and I think the Eagles get a good quality win to send them back to the championship game for the second time in 3 years. But now it's just an opportunity of saying, 1-2, which is funny because I had those, those 4 teams basically in the center of my thing there, but outside of the Bengals. That those 4 teams might, end up getting to the end. And I think it's pretty cool because I kind of love that from the beginning, but I think the Eagles, better running game, more comfort at home. I don't think the Rams play nearly as well. I think the Eagles' offensive line blocks. I think Jalen makes 1 or 2 more plays than Stafford can. I think that's how they win. Whether it's his arm or his legs. So, but that's all like Philadelphia, -6, and Philadelphia straight up. And lastly, the Baltimore Ravens over the Buffalo Bills. Look, this is the game of the year by a lot of people's estimation. First team All-Pro quarterback in Lamar, second team All-Pro quarterback in Allen. Very similar defenses, very proven head coaches, and unfortunately for a lot of fans on either side, the winner gets the right to probably go to Kansas City and play Patrick Mahomes to try to take out the king. But as Mike Tyson said, you best come at the king. When you come at the king, you best not miss. And I just really, again, for these 2 teams, these is really the only 2 teams that is acceptable to lose to each other outside of everybody else in the conference, outside of Kansas City. This was the only other team that fans would accept losing to. And the reason why I'm going with the Ravens, I'm not being a homer in this regard. I will gladly say this if it happens. I will, if I have a spoiler, unless a significant injury happens to Mahomes, I am taking the Chiefs next weekend. And there is nothing that the Ravens can do that would make me change my mind. And if I am dead wrong, I will sell my soul, to the devil to say that, I am not taking the Ravens next week if the Chiefs make it. I am not doing it. There's nothing that they can do that would make me convinced otherwise. But in this game, when you look at both these matchups, I think the significant difference is Derrick Henry in the backfield. We played this team back in week 4, and we won by 25, 35-10. But I am not one of these fans who are going to say, oh, we did that, and we're going to kick their rear ends the same exact way this time. I'm like, no, don't think that. They didn't have Amari Cooper, and they had some other injury at the time, but the Bills have a better receiving core than we do. They have competent tight ends. The kicking game, I give Tucker a little bit of an edge, but the kicking is good enough. Both defenses are solid. And at all ends, the offensive lines, I think Buffalo has a bit of a better offensive line. I would take Deion Dawkins over Ronnie Stanley. But when you look at this game, it's just going to come down to, I think, Derrick Henry's impact is going to be much more significant than what I think James Cook on the ground could be, unless the Bills just use Josh Allen. But I think, both quarterbacks will use their legs to run. And I just feel, again, in this moment, who looks more polished, who's been more consistent, in this moment, I think it's going to be Lamar, even though it is a postseason game. This is going to be an all-time great game. And we, out of all the games, this is one that probably everybody's going to talk about the most. But in this moment, I'm going to take the better running back that's going to control the game more compared to Cook. Cook's been very good. I think they said he broke the franchise, or he tied the franchise record for a single season of rushing touchdowns, and that's fantastic. But I think, when you look at the Ravens and the Bills, even matchup, quality defenses, quality coaches, quality quarterbacks. It's just going to come down to me, Derrick Henry or James Cook. I'm taking Derrick over James. But I'd be surprised if the Bills won? Not at all. The Buffalo Bills are a very, good team, and they will have earned, they have definitely overachieved, and they have, they will have earned the right to get to the conference championship game. I will say this, though. And this is my last thing about the game, for both sides. I just want people to have food for thought for. Whatever quarterback loses the game, I will definitively say this in my next video, for the conference championship weekend thoughts. That quarterback is not winning a Super Bowl with their respective franchise. That might be a hot, but I will say it. You can look at the time, 29 minutes, 46 seconds. Whatever quarterback loses this game, they are not winning a Super Bowl ever with their respective franchise. The Buffalo Bills will never win a Super Bowl with Josh Allen. If Allen loses, and I will say, even as a Raven, Lamar Jackson will never win a Super Bowl with the Ravens if he loses. Because to me, because of the other guys around, I just don't, with Joe Burrow being out, and you have to put Joe Burrow's factor in there, but it's like, you need to get past the one barrier. And if you can't, I think both sides will have an argument. But I will definitively say this, regardless of who wins on Sunday. If Josh Allen loses, he is never winning a Super Bowl with the Buffalo Bills. Ever. They could extend him. He's never going to do it. And if the Ravens lose with Lamar Jackson and he falls to 3-5, the Lamar Jackson Ravens are never winning a Super Bowl. They're never winning a Super Bowl with that team. They're never winning. I would even go as far as to say, or like I said, I'll go as far as this, either one. They're never going to make one. Josh will never make one if he loses, and I don't think Lamar will ever make one if he loses. Because to me, I feel like this is going to be a devastating feeling. Because at least for the other team, if Kansas City makes it, at least you could say, hey, you lost to the modern day Tom Brady. You lost to the king. Somebody has to be the king, but you lost to the king. Losing to Alfred is a very damaging and saddening feeling, I feel like, for either fan base. I would just say it's more pressure on the Ravens, because the Bills, at least, even though they're back at this point, they've overachieved. But the Bills, they need to think about firing Sean McDermott, because even with the context of that being said, 2021, you lost in the divisional round. What happened in 2022? You lost in the divisional round. In 2023, you lost in the divisional round. In 2024, you are going to lose in the divisional round. And the Bills know about doing things 4 straight times in a row and failing. Okay? That's just what the Bills, and again, I know the Ravens, look, I'll take my own shot. And if Bills fans want to be mad, I made that reference, but they get it. Bills fans know about failing 4 consecutive times at the same exact spot. So do Eagle fans, but that's different. But that's the problem. And for the Ravens, you look at Lamar and you go, look, we paid all this money, and I hope, and if we lose, I hope he doesn't win the MVP. Because Lamar Jackson being a 3-time MVP, this should not be real. You should not be able to say you have won 3 MVPs, making you one of 4 or 5 people, and 3 playoff wins. That's bad. That's about as bad as Sam Darnold scoring 9 points the last 2 weeks, and I guess last night, and he took 9 sacks. They weren't, that offensive line was, but that's what's at stake for this game for either team, in my opinion. That the coaches, they will get some heat. I do think change might be made, but I will say this now, and I could be wrong in how many every years. I hope I continue to make these videos. Whoever loses, that ex-quarterback, will never get to a Super Bowl with their franchise. They will never do it. And I have all the confidence in the world in saying that, because the other guys are just going to be better and have opportunities. So, but that's what Baltimore here, -1, and Baltimore straight up. But that is it. So, comment, rate, and subscribe. Please check out the NFL YouTube Prognosticators page. See a lot of great predictions from other prognosticators about, the weekend. It's sad. We got the final 7 games. 283 games. It's hard to believe. And we got the final 7. The final 7 games. And it just, it's crazy that we're coming, to an end here. 13 left, 285 games. And, here we are with the Final 4. Good luck to everyone. Good luck to all daily fantasy players that are doing it. I'm still doing a football pick'em for the postseason in some leagues. I ended up doing about 98% in my NFL pick'em pool this year on ESPN. So that's the highest rate I've been. And I appreciate everybody watching. But good luck to everybody out there. And until next week, I'll probably again do my video on Monday, since I am off Monday for MLK Day, to get my conference championship weekend picks. And then the week after, I will do my Super Bowl prediction. And that'll be it. So I just wanted to give a little rundown and also all my thoughts there. So those are my thoughts and comments for this week. Good luck to everybody out there. And until next week, This is Matthew Mack signing off. Until then, everyone, so long.